So today's webinar, we're going to talk about creating an Illinois workNet career plan. I know we did this, went over the basics whenever we did the initial in-person meeting. And so I just wanted to kind of go over that just as a reminder. I'm sure we'll be providing more technical assistance. It looks like in January we have a little bit more details on actually going through the process of setting goals and the content wise more of creating a career plan. But today we're just going to look at the basic steps, the basic overall process for creating a career plan in Illinois workNet. So with everything here, what I'm going to do is I am going to go ahead and mute people for just like the background noise, just to make sure that you know, it's just easier for everyone to hear. And then, you know, please type in the chat if you would like to, or Tara, I'll leave you unmuted, but if there's anything, you know, you'd like to add, please type it in the chat and we can make sure that we answer those questions as well. Then I'll open it up so that everybody can ask questions and so forth. Okay, so for getting started, you just go into your career pathway partner tools. Once you do this, I'm just going to go ahead and jump in to a page I already have up because I wanted to show you some people in test. So the other day we talked about completing the intake form, suitability, you know, that whole intake process. And then go through the intake process, which includes going through and completing the IWDS application. So where we pick up from here, once they have an IWDS application, IWDS application with the status of applicant, then this is the time that we recommend completing the career plan. And the reason is, it's one of the very first services that the customers receive is their ISS, or the Individualized Service Strategy. That's one of the first services that are entered into IWDS. And so by completing the career plan, you are doing that step. You are creating their individual service strategy. So, you know, as you go through here, if we're looking at the dashboard, and you can see I have some people. I have the yellow means that there's action needed. Red means that there's definitely action needed, and because they've already moved out of the yellow and into the red because that status has stayed there for more than 5 days. We try to stay consistent across these dashboards, so there's no magic number as to what happens in 5 days. It's just simply to keep consistency across the dashboards and programs, so it's not like, oh, is that 3 days or 15 days? You know, just generally it's 5 days for the red areas. When a person is in the red area, you can always click Next Steps, and it gives you a little bit of information about who, you know, why they're in this area, who's in this area, and some of the next steps that need to happen. And then it gives you a link to instructions. So whenever we're on these areas of the dashboard where we're asking you to do something, we're really trying to be good about bringing those instructions, giving you a little bit of guidance, and bringing those instructions to you at that point where you need it. So we're going to look at this group of 10 people. And remember, these people are in test. And so we've kind of messed around with them a little bit. They've already been put into IWDS, and we use them for training and that type of thing. So there's a little bit of activity that's gone on with them. But these people are still an applicant. I'm going to select this customer. And what I can see is I'm going to go directly to my overview page. So I can see that they have an intake form. The intake review has been done. I've already added some people for their integrated resource team. They didn't necessarily need an appointment, so we don't have to worry about that. And so you'll see down here that there are different things that need to be completed in order for them to be considered like complete or at least started, have a career plan. So you can see I need to review assessments and write a summary, set goals, identify planned services to reach goals, document at least one service in IWDS that would be synced, and then document credentials. So you can see an overview of what's been going on for this person. So one of the things, you can get to the career plan by either clicking this link right where you are, or there's a tab at the top for the career plan. When I go to the career plan, what we have is, this is the partner view. The customer has their own view, and it's similar. A lot of it shows as this overview page. And so what I'm going to do is, you'll see that with the overview, and what we try to do was put it in these different basic steps so you know what's supposed to occur. So first of all, we're supposed to have a review assessment. So we look at all the different assessments, put together a summary. Based on the assessments, you set goals, and then based on those goals, you start building out the plan of the next steps. What are we going to do? Now, while we're here, I'll just do a quick overview. Again, you can see that it's going to pull in some of the assessment information so that you can see it, kind of like their status of the general things that they have. Click to see more. Same thing with the career pathway information. You can see what they've selected, what their choices are, what they're working towards. You can click there to see more. And then this is some of the different accomplishments that they have. So if you select any of these links, then it'll take you to more details about each of those items. But we're just getting started. So what we need to do is go through the basic steps. As you build out your plan, it'll show down here in the bottom. And in just a moment, I'm going to come back up here and talk about this section. But the very first thing that you need to do is to review assessments. So you go to the assessment area, and it's going to bring in the information that we have in the system for this person. So if you click on skills and interests, you can see that they do not have skills and interest results, but that's, they can do that at any point in time. They can go ahead and there's a printout right here that takes you to more information. So if your customer needs to complete that skills and interest guide or skills and interest survey, you can click on customer guide, and it will provide instructions that you could give to your customers about how to access those surveys, a little bit of overview of what they are, that type of thing. The career choices, it says right here, these are the career choices that this person selected in the intake form. So once they said that I want to be in this program, these are the different areas that are of interest to me. Then you know what they selected. In this case, it wasn't based on skills and interest results that they completed, at least in Illinois workNet. Maybe they've taken skills and interest results previously, and that's how they made their decision, or maybe they just selected whatever they thought sounded good. For employment goals, again, we try to pull in the information that was marked in their intake form, so you can see their immediate employment goals. How can they travel? What they wrote out here for what are their goals. And then you can see the next section, which is a little bit more detailed, and it's meant to say, hey, we looked at these different things. As you have this conversation with them, I know you want to go to manufacturing, we offer this type of a training program, you know, is this the, you know, basically as they talk about that particular options, that types of occupations that they can get based on the training that they're going to receive, then they identify those choices. So it's going to have them select career pathway, and then you'll select from the list of occupations that are in this area. And then they can update that information. Okay. The next
Excuse
one.
me, Tara.
Well, this
I'm
is
having I'm sorry, Natasha. I'm having difficulties accessing the chat room. I've been trying, and I didn't get a chat box notification.
okay.
I just want to.
I mean, you can try to go through the link again. Otherwise, we're recording this webinar, so you'll be able to see it after the fact.
Wonderful. No problem. I apologize.
Oh, no problem.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Okay. And so the level of education, this information comes from their intake form as well. And then same with the related employment information. Barriers to employment. One of the things, this will be pulled in, but again, some of these, like if they select, they have a disability or language barrier or limited transportation, you'll see there's some additional details that are in underneath each of these. And so we're working towards changing some of the text because we don't want to have necessarily give a negative impression and, you know, I don't know, about some of these situations, some of these areas. And, you know, we typically call them barriers to employment, but I think we're transitioning the text to be more like current situation. So anyway, you can go ahead and talk to them about their current situation and then, you know, identify these areas and just click update barriers. And then if they need the disability benefits estimator, some of these little things are things that we already just offer in workNet and they may already have saved results. So we pull them into this section so that you can have visibility of the different types of assessments that are available in Illinois workNet or other assessments that have been completed by this customer that are saved with their account. We also have some other, a place for other assessments. So let's say that if you have something where you're gonna do like a basic skills assessment, you can, you know, enter that type of information in there and add it. If you have an other assessment, in some cases we may or may not have existing assessments in here. The idea is that we want to build out the different types of assessments that people are using. And so we want to continue to add to this library. So as other people are adding to this library, then you can benefit from just, you know, selecting those from the drop-down menu. And you can enter that information in there as well. Okay, so based on their assessments, you're going to write a summary. Okay, so when you do the summary, we have it broken down into readiness training, employment, independent living, physical and emotional health, and leading skills. And so this was based on, Tara, you might have to help me out on, I can't remember the very specific details, but this was based on like a lot of research, I believe, with the Disability Employment Initiative. And it was these different fields and categories are used by or accepted or approved by, I don't know if the right terminology would be, by the State Board of Education, right? For their IDCEP, or what's the name of that form? I don't know, Tara, if you're talking, I don't remember the details on that. But anyway, I can look those up. But the whole point is that this process for these different areas that you see listed here, there was a group of people, and
I'm not sure. Let me look.
it's like the IDCP. I know Kathy Tosh was the one that was working closely on that project.
Oh, the ICDC, which is the anyway. Yes, it's the employment and education like form. Are you talking about that where we have for
Yes. Yep.
all the students? Yes, it's the IEPILP. Sorry.
Okay, and so
Individualized. Sorry, education plan, individualized learning plan. Okay, sorry.
So as they went through this process, they have these different areas that they had identified, and what they have are these different categories for each of these areas. They have different areas that they want to identify on how they can, what can be done to help support that student to be successful and so forth, and reaching the goals, transitioning, that kind of thing. And so it's, if we have readiness training, identify what their strengths are, what they can do to improve, what your case manager can do to support them, what their career advisor can do to support them, what their family can do to support them, and what are their other needs. As far as a system in Illinois workNet, you do not have to answer every single one of these questions. It's recommended that you work through this process because, like I said, it's gone through different programs, studies, and this is what they have landed on as like a best practice. But technically, through Illinois workNet, you need to select one of these areas, and you have to at least answer one of these. But the best practice is to work through this process and answer each of these. Okay, so I'm just gonna type something in here and save some changes, and it saves my assessment summary. So the whole point with this is that what we want to do is put together an initial assessment, and all their goals really should be based on taking a look at their assessments. And again, you're not limited to just these assessments. You can use your own tools as well. And then be best at, again, you could put in here in your assessment summary, based on this assessment, these are the results, these are the strengths, and so forth. But it's nice to have it in one place so everybody can be literally like on the same page. And you can edit these as needed. The idea to begin with is you do your initial assessment, and then over time, you do a follow-up, whatever goes along with whatever your policies, your procedures are for your organization on how often you assess. We would appreciate it if you would just update this area so that it makes sense into helping direct where the person is going when they're setting goals and selecting next steps. It just builds out the picture. It provides the details to the story. So then the next step is to add their goals. So you just click Add Goal Statement. So maybe it's get training. I'm not an expert on goal writing statements. That'll be in January. Another person will provide you those details on how to write goal statements or recommendations, best practices. But today we're just writing text. You're going to select a category. So we'll put this as education and training plan. We'll say this is our short-term goal, and it's not started yet. We'll say that. So now you can see I added my new goal statement. I'm going to click Add, and it's going to jump me over to Build a Plan. So you can see the plan services that I've already added down here. We also have a list of system-generated services. These services are crosswalked to services in IWDS. So what I'm just going to do, I'm going to filter these by staff assisted services. And I'm going to choose training. And I'm going to say, okay, this person needs adult ed. So I'm going to click on adult ed. And it tells me that I added that service. Now you can see that these are my planned services. So you'll see attend adult education literacy classes. I click the little pencil and it allows me to edit this information. We want each of the steps to be associated with a goal because that's how it builds out that outline of what the customer will see, of what their outline of what the goal is, and then the steps underneath it. So I'm going to say this one goes with get training. I'm going to say it starts, or pretend it just started last week. And we're just going to say it goes through, I don't know, January 31st. We'll just say we do 10 hours and special instructions. For this reason, we're just going to say it started. And you can say it's a WEO funded service. And then you can say, based on that assessment area that identified what type of barriers or situations they're currently in, then you'll see that these are the two that I had checked. So I could choose limited education or training. And so what we really want to do is make sure that whenever we add these steps in, we're, associating them to which situation that it addresses to make sure that we're addressing everything that needs to be addressed. Or at least we can easily see, which ones are addressing those barriers. If you want to see a full list of barriers, you can click that button or that link, and it shows you the full list, or you can show less. And then you can add special instructions like you're going to meet with this person, or make sure you bring this, wear this type of clothes, that type of thing. And then you can update that service. You can also select the service provider. So it's going to default to the grantee. You can choose to have it select the provider that's associated with the training program that this person is associated with, or you can choose to add other and then type in the information. So we'll just do this for now. I want to update that. You can add the dollar value. We have this in here. It's optional. I think we need to get a little bit more experience on, this area and like what you want to put in there. I think it's been good just to add notes on how, if you've given them bus cards and that type of thing. But really, I know Tara or Tammy, they just need to make sure that all that information, this isn't like the monitoring source, right?
Right.
They need to make sure that that is included, however they're supposed to do that. I don't know all those details.
Wait, one more time?
On the dollar value of a service.
Yeah.
Is that
so if you're putting in $25 gas cards, we just want to see that in there. And then, the number of times you've offered it at this cost or something like that, but make sure your numbers are consistent in there. And then especially if you're paying for childcare or anything like that, that's really important to put in there as well. And then keep a hard copy of the receipts and everything in the client's file.
Right. This will just help you identify what it goes with which service, but the actual piece that's going to be used for the grant or monitoring, isn't that going to the GRS?
Yes, all the costs go in the GRS, and that's something that the finance team for your organization would have access to only.
Okay. And then once they earn a credential, you can update that service with them earning a credential. And these are the credentials that you had identified with your training program. And so it's really nice to be able to do this because you already have the information in there. So you can just select that this is what they earned, this one they earned it, and then save. And then that's, you know, obviously you wouldn't be adding the credentials in until once they completed the service, but those are the different ways that you can update the each service. So you saw that I updated this service by clicking this little pencil. Let's see here. Let me make sure. Let me just add a little note here, kind of. Now that I added the note, you can see the note is right here. If I click on it, you can read the note. You can see the start and end dates. You can see that this service is associated with a goal. You can see that this service is associated with barriers. I have a showing which barriers that you're addressing. You can see that this service has a credential associated with it. And this little icon means that a request has been sent to the person who enters your information into IWDS. If you're that person, then don't worry. Then you can just enter that information into IWDS. Not a problem. Okay. So, hey, Tara, were there, I saw there were some questions that were coming up.
Let's see.
And the wording says, level edge completed. My students are seniors. I had them enters.
Let's see.
Okay.
So did we answer Tanisha's first question? In education level, the wording says level of education completed since my students I had them completed as juniors. Is that okay?
I would say yes.
Yes. What about tape scores? We should add as a type of assessment.
I would say
yes, you would put the
with your tape scores, though, those need to be entered into IWDS. I mean, if you want to add them in here, then that's fine, but you need to know that only workNet does not populate IWDS tape scores. You'll have to enter those in through IWDS.
And do you have okay, so maybe a list of other, so you can use the CASA, the TABE. The most popular, honestly, is going to be the TABE test. And remember, that is changing in 2019. But then we have a list that Natasha is speeding to get to so fast.
Oh, this one I just chose TABE. Let's see here. Hold on a second. Basic skills. Basic skills.
There you go. Best plus. We have the CASA.
Yeah, depending on what you choose here, reading and writing.
Right. But I would tell everyone, make sure you are consistent in your agency. It is very difficult for you to use TABE tests for 2 or 3 students and then CASA. So just be consistent. Like if all your students that are, English as a second language, I'm using this test or whatever you're doing at your agency, just be consistent because you want to make sure this is how you're determining the basic skills of your client, which is also a WIOA requirement, which is why that's very important. And remember, all students have to have some type of assessment. Would it be possible to provide paid work experience under staff assistant plans? It is a big part of what our career program provides, but it's not listed in the system. Tell me a little bit more about that, Demetria. Or Natasha, do you understand that part?
Yeah. Yeah, we have it under here. Paid work. It's a complete paid work experience. You could add it. Yeah, and the list is actually, I mean, it's quite long. So if you are looking for something specific, like, paid work experience, just type in paid.
And Tanisha, I'm not sure what the last one, These are red asterisks, so it seems that you have to add something.
Are you talking about this little red X? Because on your screen it might look like a well, these, okay, so these are red. Like, let me just zoom in a little bit here. You do have to add in these red asterisk areas. I mean, this could, you could say no if it's really not. If it is, then that's what it needs to be. You're not required to include instructions or barriers, but we would like you to do that. And if I zoom in here closely, I don't know on your screen, these might look like asterisks, but they're little delete buttons. So if you looked at this, you're like, oh, wait a minute, I did this. I don't need this one. I just delete it. So as long as it's not in IWDS already, then you can delete it. Okay, so I think we answered a lot of those questions. So what we did, we went through the process, we did the review, we set goals, we built a plan. Now, one of the things that we need to do is we need the customer to agree that, hey, you know, we went through this process, we're looking at all this information, do you agree to do this? So we have a print customer copy, and we're gonna work on making it prettier, but this is what we have at the moment. So it prints out all the information that you have in that area, or in the career plan right now. It has the customer signature and then the grantee signature, and you can print that off, have them sign it, and then you could say, I'm going to have the customer agreement uploaded or on file. You select that link and you save it, and then it saves that as the status. The customer agreed, and so it documents that, hey, the customer agreed to this. Another option, we have send an electronic request for the customer agreement. That would send them a message, then they would review it, click agree when they're in their own career plan, and then that would just document it that the customer did it. Or if maybe you're in the process of, you know, 3 months into it, we need to look at our assessments and we need to make some adjustments, and then the customer, you know, you keep saying, hey, Natasha, you know, we need to get this signed. I need to have it on file. But you just can't get a hold of me to do that. Then you could choose unable to get customer agreement on file. So you have some different options to choose from. And when you do that, it says that it makes a case note to let you know that that was the option that was selected. And case notes populate IWDS. So when you do this, it'll also populate IWDS with that case note. Okay, so now we've looked at it, we've agreed, and like, okay, so now what I need to do is I need to enter these services as they come along into IWDS. So what it's gonna do is it's gonna tell you what services need to be entered into IWDS. So in this case, we just have like this goal statement, some, you know, and I need to change this heading, darn it. We used to call the career plan the I-step, but nobody knew what the I-step meant, so we just changed it to career plan because that way it was easier for everybody to know what we're talking about. So I'll have them change this, but anyway, this refers to this different step that's in the career plan. Then we have all of those steps, those system generated steps, are crosswalked to what needs to be entered into IWDS, and Jim Potts has reviewed those to make sure that we're all good and making sure that those crosswalks are okay, accurate. And so we have a column here for IWDS service and then the service type. So for this one, you know, we have occupational classroom training, which is a youth academic learning service. And then you have the planned start date. You have the planned start date, which is what is, you know, what you need, some of the big things that you need for IWDS, your planned end date, and then you know who the provider is. So this is kind of like your cheat sheet for being able to enter in information into IWDS. Now, the one thing that's really important is that, you know, this is the area that you this is the item that you selected in your career plan. So when you go into IWDS, you're going to enter this information, this information, this information, and so forth. Whenever Only workNet syncs with IWDS every night, it's going to look for this customer. It's going to look for this service type, and this planned start date. And if these three things match for that customer, the system will automatically sync to that service. So that's one reason why this little export is really important, is just to make sure that you have the right service type, service, and start date. You know, if you needed to make it a different start date for accuracy, you know, you can do that, and then you can change it in, you know, change it in workNet too, but, or manually sync them. But those are the main things you need to know about making sure that any of your IWDS services automatically sync up with the services that you have entered. One of the items that you may not have noticed as I was going through this is when I set up the goal, I originally had the status to not started. But as soon as I added this step and added a start date, it changes it to on track. So you don't have to worry about, you know, going back and another click and another change, that type of thing. Once you start a service, it'll automatically change this to on track. If something happens, I don't know, maybe they get in a car accident, or maybe they have a baby, whatever, and they need to take a little bit of time off or make an adjustment to their plan, you can go in and you could make that off track if it needed to be. Or you can mark it as complete. Okay. Oh, okay, I know what you're talking about. Okay, so I just read Tanisha's area. So I'm going to go to one of my services. I'm going to go to this adult ed one, and under dollar value. Okay, if you, yes. So if you have this as a red item, you're right, those little asterisks are there, but this whole section is optional. You can see I don't have to have any cost in here in order to save this type of a step. But if you are going to put something in here, then I have to put it in the other field. Okay. All right. Were there any, oh, the other thing I wanted to point out too while I'm here. Oh, darn it. It didn't let me step. On each of these pages, I just want to remind everybody that you have your person's profile here. If you do see all, then you can see a lot more information. If you need to update the contact information, you can do that. You can show less. The system does sync with IWDS every night. But if you do something in IWDS and you want it updated now, then you can come back into Illinois WorkNet and do this sync with IWDS, and it will do a manual sync with IWDS for this specific customer. Not for everybody, but just for the specific customer. And then you can see the last time it synced up. And then you can also reset customer passwords, send them messages. But then here's like the bigger area too, is about like instructions. Because remember I talked about we always want to try to bring instructions to you where you are. We have the different instructions. I think this one actually goes to an article that kind of gives an overview, but then also has all kinds of related instructions as well. Okay, any questions? I guess I need to go through over here and unmute people. So yeah, I unmuted everybody. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask or type. And we'll go over this again, like as you get to this point in time, when you are, deep into this type of thing, then we can make sure that we go over some of those details as you're actually using it. So Tara or Tammy, did you have anything else you wanted to add before we let everybody go?
I didn't. Thank you guys. Thank you everyone for joining us every Wednesday. Remember, next week is a holiday. We will not be on the on the Wednesday webinar, and you will get the reminder the next time we have one, which will be after the first of the year. And that's it.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Happy holidays.
Thank you. Happy holidays.
Bye-bye.